Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our Know Your Rights presentation this evening. We will be starting in just a couple of minutes to let some people trickle in. Thank you. Oh, hi, Kristen. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Okay. And is my screen sharing okay?
Yeah, looks great. Thank you.
Awesome. I was just saying maybe we can give them just a minute or two just to let some more people trickle in and maybe get started around 6:02.
Sounds great. Thanks. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll get started in a couple minutes, but given the number of people that we had register, we just want to provide some additional time to make sure that those who want to attend are able to access it. So thanks for your patience. We'll start in a couple minutes. Okay, I see that more people are beginning to trickle in. So what we'll do is we'll go with 6:05 and we'll go ahead and start then. So really appreciate everyone's patience. And just to give everyone a heads up, we will have a time for general questions at the end. Unfortunately, we're not able to give advice on very fact-specific questions that are unique to cases, but we can definitely provide answers to general questions related to immigration. So feel free to make a note of any questions that you have. We may, oftentimes, we do answer them during the course of the presentation. But if we haven't, you can feel free to drop them in the Q&A chat at the end. So thank you. All right, so it is 6:05 and we'll go ahead and get started. So thank you so much everyone for joining us this evening. Um, I think now more than ever, it's so important that we gather together for these types of events and support one another. So my name is Kristen Hunsberger, and I'm a managing attorney with Immigrant Defenders Law Center. And I will let my colleague Nicole introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm Nicole Mello. I work with Immigrant Defenders Law Center. I'm with the Welcoming Project, and I will be co-hosting today's presentation with Kristen.
Okay, all right. So to begin, we'll go ahead and provide you with a bit of an overview of what we'll be reviewing this evening. We'll be providing an overview of your rights, constitutional rights, and also how to handle interactions with ICE and law enforcement, how to navigate those situations. I want to acknowledge that this is a very stressful and very frightening time in our country for our communities, and in particular, our vulnerable communities. So, as best we can this evening, we really want you to walk away feeling empowered with information, having a better understanding of what your rights are, what the rights of your community members are, and how you can show up for one another in solidarity. So, again, just a huge thank you for taking time out to be here tonight with us. All right, so a bit of info. Oh, let's see. Oops, sorry, a little glitch here. But so going back to the second slide, here we are. So I'll provide a bit of an overview of our organization. Immigrant Defenders Law Center is a pro bono law firm, and we are the largest deportation defense law firm that does pro bono representation. And in Southern California, we're the largest. So our specialty is immigration law, and we are a group of attorneys and also legal assistants that are, doing the best we can to support our communities, in particular in this time. And this evening, we want to provide you with as much information as we can about your rights and also the immigration system and the landscape in the United States the way it is right now.
Okay, so sorry about those little glitches. My internet is a little bit slow, so please let me know if I start um, pausing or glitching out a little bit. But okay, so we'll go ahead and get started with tonight's presentation with a little overview of our constitutional rights. So, what are my constitutional rights? What do I mean when I say that? We can start with the first one, the right to remain silent. So it's very important to keep in mind that you have that constitutional right to remain silent. You do not have to say anything, especially without a lawyer present. And you have the right to not answer your door without a judicial warrant signed by a U.S. judge. And in the next slide, Kristen will talk a little bit more about how you can identify what a valid legal judicial warrant can look like, and the right to speak to an attorney. So, like I mentioned, you have the right to speak to an attorney before uh, answering any questions, before saying anything, and leading into the final point of the right to not sign anything without an attorney present. You have that constitutional right to not sign any document being presented to you, especially if you don't know what you'd be signing without an attorney present. So it's really important to keep in mind that these constitutional rights apply wherever you are. They are your rights regardless of immigration status. It's really important to have these rights with you, if not memorized, then as a picture on your phone, screenshot, or in the form of a red card, which you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, is what's known as a red card. Essentially, on one side, it'll have your constitutional rights listed out, and on the other side, it'll have it, for example, in Spanish. This red card can be found on the website where the link is listed there on the screen. It'll also be sent out after the presentation, but they also offer these red cards in, I believe, 17 or 18 different languages. So, general recommendation is to have these constitutional rights with you at all times. when leaving your house. You can download these red cards or have screenshots of them, have multiple copies in your car, in your wallet, at work, and just keeping those in mind for yourself and for your community.
So, as Nicole mentioned, these rights do apply to everyone present in the United States, regardless of status. So, just keep that in mind as I'm talking about, the rest of these issues. And uh, as far as what to look for in a warrant, um, if ICE wants to enter a private area that is not open to the public, it's very important that you ask for a judicial warrant. So, they may be providing something that is different and try to, uh, present it and argue that it's enough. But you want to make sure that it's a judicial warrant. And the way that you can know that is that it's going to be issued by a court and if it's signed by a judge. So if they present you with something claiming it's a warrant, make sure that it's judicial. And you know that by checking at the top, it'll be issued by a court, and then there needs to be a signature from a judge at the bottom. Other types of warrants, such as administrative warrants, do not come from courts and they are not signed by a judge. So on the left, you can see circled at the top, it's coming from U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Or it could be a different entity, but it's not going to say that it's coming from a court. And at the bottom, it could be signed by someone other than a judge, such as an immigration or an ICE officer. So keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to ask for it. It's the right to ask for this. If they're at your home or at an area in the workplace, or an area in a school that's not open to the general public and they're asking to enter that area, ask them for a warrant. Don't open the door. Opening the door could be, interpreted as inviting them in. Talk through the door, talk through a window, ask them to slide it under the door or hold it up to a window so that you can check it. Take a photo of it if you can safely do so. Look for these key points from a court and signed by a judge. Also look for the details on it. If it is from a court and it's signed by a judge, then look at the other details. Look at, the dates that it's valid for, the address and other details in the individuals or the property address. So take your time to review those things before taking the next steps. I want to make a note as well that we do have this presentation recorded and available on our website. So if you want to review these slides or this information later on, definitely, take a trip over to our resources hub on our website, and we'll share that later as well with a QR code that you can, quickly access as well. Because I know this is a lot of information, but just know that all of this is accessible on our website as you need it later.
Yeah, and on that note, after today's presentation, tomorrow I will be sending an email to everybody who's registered with a copy of these presentation slides and the resources that we talk about during our presentation. So you will have that information on hand afterwards. You can also feel free to take screenshots of your screen or pictures of the information if you'd like to keep that in mind and on your phone. Okay, so moving on, what can immigration enforcement look like? So here on this slide, we have some pictures of what the different immigration enforcement agencies you might see out in your community, out in public. You have pictures of Customs and Border Patrol, ICE agents, Immigration Customs Enforcement, and Homeland Security Investigation. These are just some of the enforcement agencies carrying out enforcement in the community. And so you will see their uniforms. And you also have pictures of their cars as well, with their logo and usually you can see the blue and or green stripes on the side of those SUV Fords. However, as you can see on the bottom of the slide of the screen, there are pictures of undercover agents. And as you may have seen on social media or the news, out in your community, this is the majority of what immigration enforcement agents might look like. And so some things that we would want to know is that Although sometimes they'll be wearing vests with police written on them, sometimes they might also be just wearing regular clothes, dark sunglasses, hats on as well. In these pictures, you can see that they're wearing face masks. Something that I do want to note, though, is that as of January 1st of this year, January 1st, 2026, California did just pass a law, the No Secret Police Act, SB 627, that does not allow local or federal officers to cover their faces unless they're undercover or in SWAT. Um, they must also display their badge number and personal name unless they're undercover under SB 805. And so that is something that I did want to know. You can also see a picture of an unmarked vehicle. And this is something that we have also been seeing in our communities. Although it can be a variety of things, some things that you can look out for an undercover car is, or an unmarked car, are common American models, such as Ford, Chevrolet, Dodge, GMC. Again, this isn't always going to be the case, but this is something that you can look out for. Also, some of the times they won't have license plates or they'll have a government plate. Sometimes they'll have a California exempt plate if you're in the state of California. And something else you can look out for are extremely tinted windows. Priority of the time is just so that you can't see who is inside or how many people are inside. So those are just things to keep in mind.
And I know that with some of the language we're using and referring to different entities, whether it's federal law enforcement, immigration enforcement, ICE, CBP, all the different acronyms and everything, just keep in mind that there's a lot of different agencies and enforcement individuals that are currently being used by this administration. But the main thing to keep in mind is that regardless of what their badge says or who you're dealing with, these same rights apply in all settings. So just keep that in mind. And as far as how to document what's going on when you do interact or you observe ICE presence or federal law enforcement presence in your community, it's important that as best you can that you stay calm. I know these can be very you know anxiety inducing and very stressful interactions to have. But it's very important that you remain calm and as best you can and as safely as you can, try to document it, whether that's taking notes or we've seen so many people filming on their phone as best they can. You can ask the agency that's conducting the stop or the arrest for their name and their badge number. These are government employees, and you absolutely can ask them for that. Now, whether they will actually answer or not is another, that's another issue. But if they're in a public area, you do have the right to, film. Use your discretion, though. It's important that you not escalate the situation if things are starting to get heated. So as best you can, there's so many different scenarios and so many different instances, but in general, this is the recommendation so that you can have evidence if needed later. So just, I think it's, we're really in a time where people are trying to assert their rights and use their rights. They might not necessarily be respected, but that's why evidence is more important than ever right now.
Yes, exactly. And in the email that will be sent after the presentation will be the link to this video where the pictures you see on your screen are. It's from a website called wehaverights.org, I believe. The link will be in that email so that you can get also a little bit more of information as to different scenarios when documenting what ICE is doing and your rights in those situations as well. All right, so what to do if detained by ICE. So here we have some recommendations of what you can do if you or a loved one is detained by ICE. So number one, memorizing the phone numbers of friends, family, and or immigration attorneys. So this is primarily because we have heard various reports of people whose phones are immediately taken away And they are detained and in detention without access to their phones or contact information of loved ones. And so, preparing yourself or your loved ones by memorizing phone numbers so that you are able to contact a loved one after being detained is very important. Number two, if you fear returning to your country, state it loudly and ask for a credible fear interview. Kristen will be talking a little bit more about what a credible fear interview is in the next slide, but this is something that you can ask for. State it loudly, state it repeatedly. To officers if you're being detained. Number three, if you're in Southern California, if you're a resident of Southern California, you can call IMDEF's Rapid Response Legal Hotline. The number is there on your screen. This legal hotline is for those who have loved ones who have been detained. And we do provide some services we will be talking about later in the presentation as well. When calling, some things that you can provide to really help us help you and your loved one would be the full name, date of birth, a number, if applicable, and country of origin. Number four, remembering our constitutional rights. Ask to speak to an attorney and do not sign anything without an attorney, especially if you do not know what the document is saying or what it means. Number five, may be eligible for bond. If so, request it. Again, everybody's case is very different, so it's really important to speak and consult with an attorney about your specific case. And yeah, those are some general recommendations on what you can do if you or a loved one is detained by ICE.
Okay, so as far as a credible fear interview, um, if anyone is afraid of returning to their home country, this is definitely something it's very important to ask for and repeatedly if necessary. This is an interview where an asylum officer will decide if the individual can demonstrate what's known as credible fear of being returned to their home country. And for those who are in detention, this is most often done over the phone. Um, and these are the issues that you want to think about. And this is basically the type of information that we gather when applying for asylum. So, or also for some other forms of relief that an asylum application allows for as well. So, we think about, basically these 5 points. Um, what happened, to the individual, and if they were to go back to their home country, what do they think would happen to them? Think about who was responsible for harming them. If it was like an organized group or just individuals, if it was the government or law enforcement groups. Then think thirdly about why. What was the reason that that harm was done? And what was, unique about them that they were targeted for this harm? That, it could be various factors, whether it's race, ethnicity, political beliefs. There's a whole wide variety of things, but it's important that, someone can explain the why, the reason behind it. Thinking about police involvement. If a report was made, why or why not? What, if anything, did the police do, and why are we not? Lastly, if there's somewhere else where they could safely relocate with our home country, and why or why not? So these are the factors that will determine if someone does have a credible fear. So again, if a loved one is detained, it's very important, to continue to ask for a credible fear interview, and loudly and repeatedly explain that they want a credible fear interview and that they have a fear of returning to their home country. This is something that the individuals have a right to when they are in detention.
Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit more about asylum in the United States and applying for asylum in the United States. Just as Kristen just mentioned, some points that are relevant to when applying and things to keep in mind when applying for asylum. Some other important things to keep in mind are that you must apply for asylum within 1 year of entering the United States. Um, and when applying, the I guess for lack of a better term, reasoning for applying must be persecution based on one of the following reasons that you see on your screen. So number one, race. Um, the harm that the harm must be for a specific reason, such as were you harmed because of a different race within your country? Nationality, are you of a different nationality in your country? Religion, do you practice a religion that makes you vulnerable, and that is the reason why you are being persecuted. Political opinion, are you against the government in your country? Is there a particular reason or organization or even the government itself that is persecuting you for your political opinion? And lastly, particular social group. So a particular social group, some examples of that could be if you are part of the LGBTQ community and you are being persecuted based off of that, or if you are indigenous to your country and you're being harmed, threatened, or persecuted because of that as well. And the government of your country of citizenship cannot protect you from persecution, or the government itself is who is trying to cause you harm. So, you must have been hurt in the past or be afraid that someone will hurt you in the future if you were to return to your country. Um, and something else that we wanted to note is that violence or crime in general in your country or lack of jobs isn't necessarily enough to claim asylum. You must explain how you are suffering for one of the five reasons. Again, everybody's case is different, so it's really important to consult with an attorney, with an immigration attorney, for these specific reasons to get a little bit more advice and recommendations on that. Something else that we wanted to know is the recent $100 application fee that has recently been added for applying for asylum in the United States. Previously, that was not a requirement. There is that fee now, and the Welcoming Project with Immigrant Defenders Law Center does host asylum clinics every month where we can help you fill out your application asylum. And if that is something you are interested in, we can talk a little bit more about that towards the end of the presentation. And Kristen, I'm not sure if there's anything else you wanted to add about asylum in the United States.
Well, I did want to add that for the credible fear interviews, they are in detention. They are supposed to provide an interpreter, and interpreting services that goes for any kind of immigration court proceedings, whether the individual is detained or not. So for both credible fear interviews and then also for any immigration court proceeding, there is supposed to be an interpreter in the preferred language that's provided. Keep in mind, though, the interpreter is solely there to interpret and, won't be able to provide any explanation or assistance like that. So, okay. So just an overview of deportation and where it stands. There is an option to do what is known as a stipulation to removal. And basically, this is an agreement between the individual and ICE that they will be deported without having a, immigration court case or going before a judge or anything. Um, it's really case by case basis for each of these scenarios. And it's a very difficult decision, considering, the length of, the length of time that someone could possibly be detained, and where things are, how things stand right now with this particular administration. Um, Individuals have a right to their day in court. It's not necessarily being respected by this administration, but it's a very case by case decision, and it's one that the individual needs to make, you know, based on what's best for themselves and their family, and hope and ideally consulting, even just with a consult with an attorney. Um, Secondly, there's also voluntary departure, and that is an option that would allow an individual to leave the US on their own rather than being ordered deported in court. So that's something that you would ask for when you have an immigration court case already, and that the judge has the discretion to grant. Um, Sometimes judges would require that a plane ticket has already been purchased in the name of the individual. So, it can kind of vary from judge to judge what that would look like. And all of these are very like case specific situations. Um, and then lastly, there is also what's known as CBP Home, which is a new self-deportation program using this app. And the promise is that it will give individuals $1,000 after they leave. There have been kind of mixed feedback about, if and when and how individuals actually do receive that, but it's definitely an initiative by this administration to encourage people to just, deport themselves and kind of trying to entice them with $1,000. So. All right, so we'll move on to the next topic here.
Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about how you can find a detained friend or family member or loved one. So this is a website, the link that you see there on the screen. It's a website called ICE Detainee Locator, and it's something that you can use after coming to find out that a loved one has been detained. You can input their name, their country, birthday, and or their A number into the website, and generally they will pop up. It can range between a couple of days to maybe up to a week for them to come up on the locator after they've been detained. And with that, you can kind of track where they're at, which detention facility they are currently being held at. And so some important things to keep in mind with this detainee locator is that minors will not be listed on the website, so they will not come up on the website if you were to put in their information directly. If they're under 18, you can use their parents' information to look for them. If they're an unaccompanied minor, meaning they enter the United States without a parent or legal guardian, you can call the number that you see there on the screen to talk to the Office of Refugee Resettlement, ORR, to try to locate them. Um, the general recommendation is that you should not visit a detention center if you're undocumented. It is very, very risky that you can be detained if you visit a detention center when undocumented. So, we recommend if you know someone who is preferably a citizen or a legal permanent resident, hold some sort of immigration status to visit your loved one if possible, but it is very risky to visit a detention center if undocumented.
Okay, so now more than ever, we want to encourage families and communities to really do what they can to be prepared in advance. If unfortunately a family member or a loved one is detained, um, and we'll be linking, the link to our family preparedness toolkit that we have that's on our website. It's free. It's available in English and in Spanish. It's a great toolkit for families to work through together. So part of this is keeping all important documents and ideally a copy. And if you can have maybe like a copy of it a picture of it on your phone and then like a physical copy, just to have backups, that's always a good thing. So any important documents kept in a safe place and then letting someone that you know and trust know where to find them. So things like birth certificates, passports, ID documents, financial documents, any kind of documents that support immigration case, proof of U.S. residency, proof of other status, for example, receipts for any kind of petitions for immigration status or other forms of relief that you might have applied for. DACA, proof of that, or work permits, EADs, social security cards, visas, and so on, U.S. identification. These are all these are all examples. It's not an exhaustive list, but we definitely recommend you have that, organized with this family preparedness plan. Also keep in mind, particularly vulnerable groups or members of the household that rely on others for their care. So, children, elderly family members, those with special needs or with limited capacity. You think about who would take care of them in the event that you can't and what that would look like. A part of our toolkit includes making custody, or guardianship arrangements for children in particular. Write down information that will be needed for caring for these individuals, whether that's medication or, school schedule, location, trusted babysitter contacts, doctor contacts, things like that. Also any, allergies or important documents and where they're located for all individuals and in particular the vulnerable ones in your household. Communicate with your children about this and it's always better to have something like this and not need it instead of, really needing it and having to, in a frenzy, put all this together. And, many of us also, choose our own family as far as like friends that are more like family. For those in that situation, like, maybe you don't have children or a spouse, but you have like a group of, neighbors or community members that are looking out for each other. This is something that, you can also think about in that context too, sharing it with trusted members that can, look out for you or helping others that you're checking in on and that are vulnerable and, worried about detention. This is something that you can do for your neighbors, your friends, your community members that might need help and that are at risk right now.
Okay, so now we'll talk a little bit about documents that you should have with you on your person at all times and documents that you shouldn't. So on the left hand of the screen, you'll see some identification documents and a red card, which we spoke about earlier in the presentation. These are things that are recommended that you have with you, especially in case that you are confronted with immigration enforcement that you can present. So first is that Know Your Rights red card. Again, as a reminder of your constitutional rights. And if you don't feel safe vocalizing these constitutional rights, you can always hand the card to the agent as kind of letting them know that you do know your constitutional rights and you're exercising them. But when possible, it is very important to vocalize as much as possible that you are exercising your constitutional rights. Then you see a California driver's license, identification card. Again, that is a US issued identification card. And also you see a work permit, so employment authorization card and social security card. And at the bottom of the screen is a what's called a I-797 notice of action. So this is generally something that you would receive after, for example, filing or submitting an asylum application or some sort of form of relief. It could be a notice of receipt or even an approval, a notice of approval. If you do have something like that that applies to you, it is very important to keep many copies of these documents and carry them around with you when leaving your home. On the right hand of the screen, you see documents that you should not have with you. And so generally, you might be able to tell that these are all foreign documents. The general recommendation is to not carry foreign documents with you when you're leaving your home. This essentially is to prevent ICE for having probable cause that you are of a different country. So, something else that is not necessarily noted on here is that you should not carry fake or fraudulent documents. So ensure that all of your documents are valid and assigned to you and your individual. So We can move on to the next one.
Okay. Thanks, Nicole. And as an added reminder too, as far as any kind of documents or IDs issued from your country of origin, do keep those safe and keep them at home. But just, the recommendation is not to have them on your person, but just keep them safely at home. If you do encounter ICE in public spaces, these are some recommendations. So when we think about public spaces, I'm referring to areas that are open to the general public. So I'm not talking about, private homes, private areas, areas that are not open to everyone. I'm talking about, open areas. First and foremost, stay as calm as you can. Again, I know that these can be very stressful interactions. I've certainly had them myself, and it can be quite frightening interaction to have at times. But as best you can, stay calm, take a deep breath or, two or three, and don't run away. Running away, could be viewed as, trying to, evade ICE or interfere with whatever they're trying to investigate. So I just, as best you can, just stay calm and, avoid doing anything that might escalate the situation. Um, Again, remember the right to remain silent. You do not have to say anything. You do not have to answer any questions. As uncomfortable as it might be to use that right, it's very important that you exercise your constitutional rights. Declare that you're using that constitutional right to remain silent. If you have a red card with you, show that to the individual. Sometimes you can, be too scared to even talk, and that's why it's good to have like a red card with you or even a photo of it like on your phone or something, just to help you remember what your rights are in the moment. Um, Ask if you're being detained. Am I free to go? If they say that you're not being detained, then say, okay, then, am I free to go? And then, of course, you can go on your way if they say that you're free to go. Also, you have the right to not sign anything, without speaking to an attorney. Even if you don't have an attorney, you have the right to, you still have that right. So, um, it's even if you're pressured or whatever kind of explanation or whatever you're told about having to sign something, say, I don't want to sign it. I want to speak to an attorney about this. Don't give any information about your country of origin. Again, this, it falls under the right to remain silent. So you don't have to provide any of that information. And again, do not provide any falsified or fake documents. Doing something like that could potentially be criminal and will most likely cause some really serious problems for any kind of immigration case that you might be trying to pursue or any, pending immigration applications. So definitely keep that in mind.
Okay, so knowing your rights in private spaces. ICE agents can enter any public space, as Kristen was mentioning. However, to enter private spaces, agents must have a judicial warrant. So, some examples of being able to identify some private spaces are number one, your home. Your home is a private space. Like Kristen mentioned earlier, agents do not have the right to enter your home without a valid judicial warrant. Some examples of private spaces at your workplace that could be break rooms, bathrooms, offices, um, lunchrooms, anything of the sort where the general public cannot access. At schools, that could be classrooms, teacher, staff rooms, employee rooms, closets, custodial rooms, anything of the sort, again, where the general public cannot necessarily enter. If ICE comes to your school, job, or house, First recommendation is to ask the officers to show you documents under the door or against a window. It is very important to keep in mind to not open the door, to always have them show you any documents from behind a window or sliding it under the door so that you can look them over or review them. Number two, if they enter forcefully, don't resist and remain silent. Again, they don't have the constitutional right to enter without a judicial warrant. However, sometimes they may still try to. They may barge in through the door, and it's very important to, again, stay as calm as possible in again, a very chaotic situation, but we don't want to escalate things and put you or others around you at risk. And remembering our constitutional rights to remain silent. Number three, yeah, remember your constitutional rights. Don't say or sign anything. So always keep that in mind. Sorry, there you go.
All right, thanks. So when you're consulting someone about your case, it's very important that you go to someone that specializes in immigration law and that is an immigration attorney specifically. So when talking about who immigration attorneys are, there's someone that has studied immigration law. They can help determine the particular path and what a case might qualify for, different types of immigration relief. This is very different than a notary. Um, you've perhaps heard about notary or notario fraud. Notaries are not attorneys in the United States. In other countries, individuals known as, professionals known as notarios might be able to do certain legal processes or give certain advice. That's a different system in other countries. And so here, what you want to look for is an attorney, someone who is licensed, has passed a bar, is licensed and accredited. So we do have a list of vetted pro bono service providers, legal providers. So that's certainly a place to start. And then we also have some other links on our resources page if you want to get a consultation for it's different from firm to firm, but oftentimes some firms will at least provide a brief consultation at little or no cost at all. But again, just really be careful so that you're talking to someone that can legitimately help you with your case and that is qualified to talk to you about immigration options. And one last point on this, be very careful if even if they are an immigration attorney and they're licensed, um, I would caution you to be careful with anyone who is saying they can guarantee results. Not even the best immigration attorney can guarantee how a judge may or may not make a decision on something or what the outcome will be for an application. So just keep that in mind too, because really, you can do the best you can on a case, but you can't control the outcome in terms of what the judge will decide or what, a government employee is going to be deciding when they process an application.
Sorry about that, everyone. My internet is really slow, and so sometimes the slides skip over a lot. But okay, so talking about fraud and being on the lookout, keeping things in mind when it comes to fake documents and authentic documents that are coming from the Department of Homeland Security or the Citizenship and Immigration Services. Um, so some things that we wanted to point out and things to look out for are you see sample notices, notices of action on the screen, and on the left-hand side is a fake document. Some things that I wanted to point out here are um, grammar issues. For example, a lot of things are misspelled. You can see that at the very top where it says, this notice does not grant, I'm assuming, any immigration status or benefit. The word grant is misspelled, and there are a couple of other grammar issues within the document. Also, formatting, some things are weirdly spaced out or a little too close compared to an authentic document that you can see on the right-hand side. And so it's just very important to keep things in mind when you are receiving something in the mail or via email or something on your phone that is claiming to be from an immigration enforcement agency or Department of Homeland Security. Just be very vigilant, especially in these times where there are a lot of individuals out there taking advantage of our communities and just trying to get money out of them and taking advantage of them in their situation. So also, let's see what else is there. Oh, okay. At the very bottom, you can see that the formatting is off in the last box where it says U.S. Citizenship and Immigration, SBC. The address for that alleged USCIS office is actually an a the address for an Adelanto detention facility. Also, you can notice that at the very bottom it says Estados Unidos, which is United States in Spanish. So just things to keep in mind when receiving a document from an immigration enforcement agency. When looking at authentic documents, these are just some examples of notices of approval notices and a notice to access a USCIS online account. Um, and also pointing out the approval notice on the far right. If you were to receive this physically, like in the mail, usually these approval notices will have a green tint to the paper. So if you were to receive something in the mail and it's maybe more of a brown tint, as you can see on the left-hand side, that is something that you want to take precaution on when reviewing these documents. And so something else that we wanted to point out is in the context of bond, if your loved one is getting released on bond, a lot of the time or every time bond is going to be paid with ICE, with the Department of Homeland Security. There are some fraudulent documents that allege that it is coming from USCIS. So always make sure that if um, bond is to be paid, it is being requested by ICE, the Department of Homeland Security. Notices requesting bond payment from USCIS are fraudulent, and it is probably someone just trying to get money and take advantage of the situation. Again, consult with an attorney if you have doubts of a document and try to get advice on that specific scenario. Is there anything else you wanted to know about fraudulent documents, Kristen?
No, I think you covered it. Thanks. Okay, so if you do want to consult with an attorney, and I think in these times, especially if you have questions or you're concerned about your status, immigration law is so case specific. So it is always good, even to just preemptively consult with an attorney just to confirm, where you're at, if there's things that you have questions about, what the best course of action is or the best next step for your situation. And if you don't have a trusted attorney already, these are some great ways to find one. On the left, there's a QR code for searching by state or by your postal code. And then on the right, there's searchable by state for specifically pro bono legal service providers. This information is also available in our resources hub on our website. But feel free to take a photo of this now as well if you'd like to consult it later. But again, if you have concerns or questions about your case, or want a second opinion or something, it's always important to just get connected, even if it's just for a consultation to get a better idea of what your specific options are.
Okay, so if you are currently, for example, in removal proceedings, if you're going to court, immigration court, or registered with ICE. These are some links we have here in order to change your address or to request a change of address. Sorry, change of venue, a court venue. So it's very important and it's important to keep in mind that you have to always keep your address updated with ICE or with the immigration court. When you move, I believe you have about 5 days to change your address after moving. And this is especially important because if you were to move and there was an update on your case, or maybe the court hearing was changed, location, time, or date, then that mail document will be sent to the address that they have on file. And so if you move and you don't have access to the mail at your previous address, you won't know that something has changed or has been updated with your case, and that can have some negative consequences on your case as well. And so these are also some things that the Welcoming Project with Immigrant Defenders Law Center does help. So if you are in the Southern California area and need help with changing your address with ICE, or with the immigration court, or you would like to change your court to a location that's closer to your new address, we will have our contact information at the end of the presentation so that we can get in contact with you and help you out with those services.
Thanks, Nicole. So there's lots of ways that you can support your community right now, and I think just your participation and presence this evening is a great example of that. So just again, thank you everyone for showing up and sharing the information, whether it's on social media or word of mouth, text messaging, trusted resources from trusted organization. There's our resource website here that we've listed. We continue to update that. On there, we have recordings of Know Your Rights presentations. We have, infographics, one-pagers, information about different types of asylum relief options that you can apply for. So it's a great thing to keep readily, accessible in your browsers. We also have mutual aid opportunities. There's a lot of vulnerable community members that need help right now. Maybe they have limited incomes or they have gone from a two-income household to a one-income household because a loved one has been detained. So, it's great to, engage in mutual aid as best as you can. There's so many different ways to do that, whether it's through churches, through donating to a trusted, community center or, other resources. Also by just reporting and documenting ICE sightings and reporting that to the rapid response teams. We'll provide the number for that a bit later. But, like I'd mentioned earlier, just, everyday expenses that individuals have, whether it's, food, school supplies, prepared meals, things like that. There's so much that individuals can do. Also, donating if you have the capacity to do so, whether that's your time or other resources you have. We have a great bond fund that Clue Justice set up. So we have the link for that here as well. Or you can donate to pro bono immigration law firms, whether that's our organization or one of our, trusted collaborators. There's so many ways to help right now, and there's really something for everyone. You definitely don't have to be like an immigration attorney or work in that field. We really need, everyone in the community to come together and just contribute what they can right now.
Okay, so this is a QR code, and there's a link at the bottom for our resources page, the Immigrant Defenders Law Center resources page. A lot of what we've talked about in this presentation this evening can be found on the resources like Kristen mentioned, the slides and recordings of this Know Your Rights presentation, but also resources and guides, for example, on how we can go about applying for asylum or changing your address. There are documents there that, excuse me, there are documents there that can provide a little bit more information and guide you through that process. There are a lot of other resources that we are constantly updating, and be sure to check out our resources page for more information on that as well.
Thanks, Nicole. So these are some hotlines that we have for emergency situations. A 24/7 one is the Alternative Crisis Response Hotline. And this is for, safe, confidential, specialized support for anyone that's experiencing a mental health crisis. And it is a number to call in those situations instead of calling police or paramedic intervention. And we also have information available at the county government website as well if you want to get more information about that hotline. Anyone having, experiencing domestic violence, needing help with that, we have that hotline. Also specifically for suicide prevention, I want to note that number as well, especially in this very stressful time in our country. These are all important numbers to keep in mind. It can be helpful to have them just entered in your phone already and just kind of available, or if you want to take a picture of this. Also, human trafficking hotline, if there's any concerns about that, it's always important. It's better to be safe and just make that call. Sexual assault support, there's a designated hotline for that. Also wanting to look out for individuals that have, adolescents or children that have run away, wanting to make sure they're safe, call the number as well. So I think, don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, Everyone needs help with something sooner or later in their life. So these hotlines are available to support the community. So feel free to, share this information, and, definitely make the call, if you need it or if a loved one or neighbor needs it.
Okay, so this is a list of those rapid response hotlines that Kristen had previously mentioned. These are hotlines within the general Southern California area, although at the bottom there are also some hotlines, rapid response hotlines in the Sacramento and San Francisco area. You can use these hotlines to report ICE sightings. Or if someone you've seen someone has been detained. Again, I do want to point out that the IMDEF Rapid Response Legal Hotline is specifically for those whose family member or loved one has been detained, not necessarily to report ICE sightings, but you can call these numbers to report any ICE sightings or any ICE activity in your community. Also, we have some social media accounts here that are trusted and are very, very useful to keep up to date with and get trusted and relevant information to keep yourself informed with everything going on.
Thanks, Nicole. So I want to highlight the rapid response hotline that we have at IMDEF, and this is only for legal resources. This is not to report ICE activities. So if you have a loved one or a neighbor, community member that has been detained, apprehended by ICE, as soon as possible, call this line. Assistance is available in English and in Spanish. As best we can, we will try to connect individuals with legal resources, representation if possible. There's definitely a high demand for this right now. And so as best we can with other partner organizations, trying to really empower our communities with legal resources and make sure that we have a record as best we can of who is being detained, where they are, and whether or not what kind of assistance they might qualify for or be able to get connected with. So this is something that feel free to take a photo of this, share with community members as well. I think this is a great example of looking out for each other right now. So again, this is only to this is for connecting with legal resources, but not to report ICE activity. If you want to report ICE presence or activity that you're seeing, refer to the other number that we have on the previous slide. And again, all of our resources on our hub are available in Spanish and in English, so you'll see both versions on the website when you visit it.
Okay, so thank you so much again to everybody who joined us tonight for our Know Your Rights presentation. We very much value your desire to keep yourself informed and wanting to learn how to protect yourself and your community and loved ones. And so, again, thank you so much for joining us. Kristen, we have some questions in the Q&A. Let's see.
Yeah, so we can definitely go through these questions as best we can. So I see a question about individuals that have residency status, if they'll be okay or not, and whether or not showing proof of residency is sufficient. So if you do have legal residency, definitely keep, proof of that like with you if you're going outside. Unfortunately, as we've been seeing in communities and in the news, some individuals are detained anyways. And so, nonetheless, keep copies of that with you, have a family preparedness plan like we talked about. I can't, guarantee how ICE might, interact as far as if that will be respected or not. But I think that maintaining proof of that, if there's questions about the particular situation that someone is in that has residency, get a consult with a trusted attorney that specializes in immigration. But again, make sure that you have identification like what we talked about on the slide. And if you want to revisit that, this recording and the PowerPoints are going to be available to you. So the recording is on our website, but then also after this, we'll be sharing the PowerPoint as well, so you can have that information to keep in mind. I also see we have a question about how do you know if the U.S. judge signature is legitimate or not, and whether or not you can, look up the name. So again, you want to look and see if the warrant is issued by a court and signed by a judge. I don't think in the moment if usually these interactions, just practically speaking, are going to be somewhat high stress and might not give you a lot of time to like deeply look into something, but that's where documentation comes into play. If you can, as safely as you can, take a photo of it. If there's, for whatever reason, even if it looks valid, just take a photo of it anyways. It might be something that comes up later in terms of looking deeper into if it's valid or not. But I think the main things that you want to look for is, okay, is this coming from an immigration court? On the signature block, does it say, honorable so and so or judge so and so? So that's the main thing you want to look for. Beyond that, it might be something you look into later, but the main thing is making sure it's coming from an immigration court and it's signed by an immigration judge. And another question about fake signatures. Again, I think the key thing is just making sure that it is, at least on its face, looking like the example that we shared. And if you can, take a photo of it. Because in the moment, just practically speaking, there might not be time to look up all that information, but at least if you've determined, okay, this isn't coming from some other administrative office, you want to make sure that it just at least is coming from a court and has a judge's name and signature on it. But practically speaking, it may be difficult in the moment to to prove that in the moment. But again, that's how you just document any concerns that you have. Take a photo if you can, and note anything that might stand out to you. Um, so next question is whether or not, okay, so there's, this memo going around you probably heard about that is letting ICE officers know that they can enter without a warrant into private spaces such as homes. Um, there may be I'm sure there's going to be even more memos that are leaked in the future. It might, who knows? But I think that those types of memos do not change what constitutional rights are. That has not, the rights under the Constitution still apply. So, um, in general, like the best practice that we're sharing is to still assert your rights under the Constitution, still continue to ask for a warrant if someone is trying to enter a private area, and document what happens, even if the ICE agents aren't being respectful of what the rights are. This is still a situation where it's important to document for evidence that might be helpful later. So it might be a situation where, where ICE is coming in and not respecting those rights. They're ignoring the warrant requirement. Um, but it's something that, as best you can, still document it, and it might be something that is useful later to push back against what happened. Um, let's see. And if there is concern about reporting violations of the face covering law, again, you want to, um, as safely as you can, document these things. And if you can safely call, local law enforcement, such as police, just to at least document this as well. It might be something in the moment that can't be, taken care of, but, calling your representative, state and local representative offices, definitely you can, document and report violations of that. Um, and just looking at other questions here. Um, let's see. There's a question about grassroots efforts and the national strike movement that's being organized. Um, and so I think that, there's so many different ways to participate. It's going to be and to provide solidarity and support right now for our communities and our country. I think that it's going to look different for everyone. I think that there's many ways to support each other and to advocate for change, and really speak up for human rights and speak up for our constitutional rights. For some people, it might be, participating in the strike, participating in a peaceful protest. Other people might not be able to do that. It's really, it's a case by case situation, but each of these pieces are important in terms of advocating for change and supporting communities. So just pick what, makes sense for you and your situation and what you feel safe doing. But I think, so many things are important. We have advocates and attorneys, we have, community members, we have protesters, we have journalists, we have, volunteers, we have donors. So all of these roles are important and really matter. And in facing the situation that we're in right now as a country. So Nicole, do you want to talk about just review a bit as far as like the recommendations for travel? Um, you know, I think just revisiting what would be helpful um, to carry as far as ID for someone um, who has DACA or maybe some other form of relief but wants to travel.
Yeah, so again, with with everybody's case, it's very it's like Kristen has said, it's case by case basis. So uh, it really depends on your specific situation, and if you have a very specific situation, you have questions about the best recommendation is to speak with an immigration attorney. But generally, when traveling, it's always best to make sure that your travel documents, your identity documents are valid, that they are sorry, I'm just trying to look for the question here to make sure I hit all the points. But yeah, generally, making sure that all of your documents are valid and they are legal and like not fraudulent. They're assigned to you, they're government issued. In terms of if you are of if you have DACA status, again, if there might be some uh, potential risks that you may be worried about. And again, there might be other factors at play that um, are relevant to your specific case and that may make things a little bit more riskier. And those are questions that we really recommend you speak with or consult with an immigration attorney about. Um, and yeah, Kristen, I'm not sure if there's anything a little bit more specific that could be recommended there.
Thanks. Yeah, and I think it's there's always a risk with travel. But I think that it really is case by case as far as making that decision and deciding what is the best step for that individual. I think this is a situation where consulting an attorney is a good idea before you take that step and travel. Um, Risk factors are going to be very different person to person depending on, their type of immigration relief or status. So, I think just to be safe, that would be the best option. Um, and we had a question about asylum screenings, and um, currently the government does have a pause on making decisions for asylum applications. Um, but as of right now, the credible fear interviews for those who are detained are still moving forward. That is a separate process from applications for asylum that are pending. So, um, individuals still have a right to ask for and be given a credible fear interview. Having said that, I have had clients that have had to repeatedly ask for this. So, again, contacting a legal aid organization or contacting our rapid response hotline to get legal information or get legal assistance can be helpful if you know of someone that is being denied the right to a credible fear interview. So thanks for that question. Also, there was several questions about an A number. Do you want to talk about that, Nicole, and just explain like what an A number is?
Yeah, so an A number is typically a nine-digit identification number. It's usually assigned to someone who is in, for example, removal proceedings. For example, if you're going to immigration court, you will have an A number assigned to you. And again, it's a nine-digit number. And if someone who has been detained, if a loved one has been detained, that has not previously been in proceedings or has filed some um, form of relief for appear before a judge, and they don't already have an A number, they will be assigned one once they are processed through the system after being detained. And so, again, that is something that is asked for example, on the ICE detainee locator that I talked about earlier, but there's also an option to search for people just based off their name, birthday, and country of origin if you don't have that A number already. But the A number will be assigned to someone within a couple of days to a week after being detained if they don't already have one. So that's what an A number is. You can, if you have any immigration documents, it could be somewhere on for example, the top left-hand side of the of a new of excuse me, of an approval notice, like we showed earlier in the presentation. Yeah, it'll typically say a number and then the 9 digits there. So, yeah, it's essentially an identification number.
Thanks, Nicole. Um, so there's a question about whether or not um, individuals can safely go out in public, depending on if they have an approved visa or not. And again, this is going to be a decision case by case as far as what risk there might be. Um, So certainly like proof of an approved visa would be something that you could carry with you. For example, I have clients with juvenile visas approved, but they also have EADs or work permits and social security cards that they've been given. So those are, the three things that I would recommend that they have, copies of and that they keep with them. But it's really a personal decision. Case by case basis, whether someone feels safe to go outside. Some people do, others might not. Um, Depending on the particular situation, um, you know, you can also look into applying for a driver's license or, a real ID in California to try to get a state ID as well. So those are things to think about too. Um, and we had a question about if business owners can refuse entry to federal agents. So, in general, I think it's, you know, business owners can think about, designating areas for customers only. There's lots of variation in this, as far as refusing entry to federal agents. I've seen some businesses post signs saying, entry for, paying customers only, or, customers, only entry only for customers picking up orders. So those are things to think about. It's again, there's so much variation depending on like the type of business and what the physical space looks like. But I think in general, business owners should think about how they can set up the space to designate areas only for customers. I've also heard of business owners having the front door locked and having a sign posted that entry is only for customers. So there's lots of like kind of creative ways of making sure that business spaces are also safe for customers to continue to come to and for communities to continue to go to and to support. Did you have anything you wanted to add to that, Nicole, about businesses?
No, I think you covered everything. Yeah, I think it's just really important to know that as a business owner, you can definitely, like Kristen said, designate those private spaces that are not generally open to the public, and again, just for customers and paying customers, and maybe having signage around, like for in the restrooms or in the kitchen area, saying that it is a private space, so that it is very clear to ICE agents that it is not a public area and they do not have access to those areas.
Okay. So we have a few more minutes left as best we can. We'll try to get through the remaining questions. There's a question about what type of documents would be best for those who are naturalized citizens. I'm not going to say there's like best, other than just thinking back on the slide we shared as far as showing, um, any kind of documentation issued by state or federal agency. In the case of naturalized citizens, that would be if they have a passport, if they have a driver's license, if they have, real ID. But as far as being a naturalized citizen, proof of citizenship basically would be, a US passport, for example. That would be something. But so that's important to keep in mind and just think back on that slide that we provided as far as what to carry and what not to carry. Um, there's also a question about getting involved with helping and volunteering. I mean, there's so many options. There's more than I can mention, but I think definitely staying connected with your local community. There's there's so many different organizations. So basically finding what interests you, thinking about the skills that you have to offer, and looking for something that you want to contribute to. So it's there's a lot of great organizations out there that are doing the work to take care of one another. So
Yeah,
I
and if
think
I if I can add really quick on
sure.
that note, yeah, there I have seen there are a lot of like if you're on social media, for example, there are a lot of community specific social medias that are providing a lot of mutual aid to their community, whether it be grocery drives or even as far as coordinating with people to stay vigilant outside of like bus area stops or in parking lots of businesses such as Home Depot, where we've seen a lot of increased immigration enforcement. And just being like Kristen mentioned, being connected with your community as much as possible and reaching out even to businesses or areas that might be willing to receive help, and maybe they might be able to direct you to different areas or different opportunities as to where you can provide some sort of mutual aid in your capacity.
Okay. I also see some very like case specific questions. So I think if anyone has like questions about specific scenarios of interactions with ICE or you know specific immigration situations particular to them, definitely encourage you to consult an attorney. Again, on our resources hub on our website, we have those two search options for trying to find an attorney to consult with, because unfortunately in this, larger group setting, we can't really speak to individual scenarios and outcomes. Let me see. Let's see. Okay. So there's questions about, U.S. citizens um, who are Hispanic, whether or not they should carry their U.S. passport. So I think that, um, now it's if you feel safer doing that, I mean, why not? It's really a case by case decision. But I acknowledge that this is a very scary time. In its we are seeing um, even individuals of status and individuals who are citizens, being um, being stopped, being apprehended. So I think that is definitely a way to feel safer. And thinking back again to that slide that we have about the types of ID to keep with you. Those are the types of IDs that we would recommend, whether it's a passport or it's a state driver's license. Let's see. So it's a question about if the tips are the same for legal citizens and undocumented. So all the rights that we described in the Constitution, those apply to everyone present in the United States, regardless of status. Um, and then to clarify, with the A number, it's not something you can request. Unfortunately, it's something that is issued by the government. So um, if you do not have one and you haven't been given paperwork from the government, it means that you are not in what's known as removal or deportation proceedings. It means that you don't have a case against you from the government. You don't have an active immigration court case. Um, so again, there's so much variation case by case. It's all very fact specific, but if you don't know if you have an A number or you think you have one but you're not sure, definitely consult with a qualified, immigration attorney that can help you get clarity about that. A question about if a child is underage, how they can be identified. Um, that's a very good question, and I think that what to keep in mind is that you know children can also get US passports. I know it's not maybe super common, not everyone might have one, but children can get US passports as well. If that's not an option, if they're not a US citizen, but they have some other form of immigration, relief that they've applied for or a visa that they've received a notice about, again, going back to that slide. And again, these are all available on our website, these, resources, and we'll be sending copies of this PowerPoint. But think about that slide as far as like the examples of IDs that are an option. And so for children, if they have, for example, a juvenile visa and an EAD and a social security card, those are things that, are issued to children. But that slide gives examples of the types of documents that could be used for identification for children.
Yeah, and if I can hop in really quick on
Mhm.
that note too, another example or another option can be, for example, for children, school ID. It is issued within here in the United States. If they go to school here and they have, sometimes children are given an ID with their ID number and a picture. It's a picture ID, and it might not be government issued, such like a California license or California ID, or sorry, state issued, but it is a school ID, a school that is here in the United States. So that is another option for children as well.
Okay, thank you. Right. So a few more questions about ID. I think that, again, just thinking back on the slide that we provided, and um, if I know that sometimes visas are inserted or, put inside the passport, but I think that's where you could take a photo of that and have a copy of it. If you're concerned about having a foreign passport itself with you, then, perhaps just carrying a color, high quality copy of just the visa itself as proof of right to be present. So that's something to think about. Um, and a question about class action lawsuits for stops. Um, there's it's a very long answer. There's lots of organizations that are doing different work for, excuse me, sorry, that are doing work for um, all of these violations that we're seeing right now. So just know that um, there's a lot of people that are trying to help address all of these violations of rights that are going on right now. And I think that as a community, in addition to showing up for events like this, it's important to continue to document what you're seeing, whether it's, someone getting, trying to enter a private area without a warrant or trying to stop someone without reasonable cause. So I think that as best we can, there's so many different ways, and there's really something for everyone to do to support our communities right now. So um, we are a little bit over time, but just wanted to thank everyone so much for participating this evening. This is definitely an important part of coming together and supporting each other in this time. So thank you so much for participating and being here. Thank you, Nicole, for tag teaming this with me as well. And Nicole will be sending out copies of this presentation to everyone who signed up so that you get a copy of the slides. And then also I would encourage everyone to continue to visit our website as we are updating it with resources to address the changing things that are coming up. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, thank you for joining us and have a great night.
Bye.
Bye.